Now, the summer holiday period sees Australians take to the roads, of course, but many drivers find it frustrating that on high-quality, multi-lane roads, the speed limit remains relatively slow. Now, it raises the question of whether Australia could move towards European-style variable speed limits, which are often well above the current speed limits on Australia's major thoroughfares. For more on this, we're joined by Toby Hagon. He's the editor of the Drive section in the Fairfax newspapers in Sydney. Toby, good morning.
How are you, Michael?
I'm very well, and here on the couch I'm joined by John Thompson. He's the Senior Manager of Road Safety and Marketing at the Transport Accident Commission.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, John. Let's start with you, Toby. You've written a fairly provocative piece calling for the speed limit on the Hume Highway, for instance, to be raised to 130 kilometres an hour. Take us through your train of thought here.
Well, look, whether it should be raised to 130 or even down to 120, but at least revise it or have a look at those speed limits, because I've just spent 2 days or 2 full days over the Christmas period driving to and from Melbourne from Sydney, and it's pretty obvious that 110 on a clear day for the vast majority of that freeway is actually, most people find a little bit frustrating. There's a lot of tailgating going on. You can see impatience, and people are generally finding other things to do rather than concentrating on the very serious task of driving. So why not potentially reduce fatigue, keep people on the roads a little bit shorter, and get there a little bit quicker.
What benefits, therefore, would there be from raising that limit by 10 or 20 k's an hour?
Well, say you raised it by 20 kilometres an hour, you're probably looking at carving more than an hour off the trip. But on top of that, you're also increasing concentration, attention levels, and getting people more focused on the task of driving.
John Thompson, good idea?
Look, raising the speed limits on the Hume Highway or other Australian highways, we would see, unfortunately, we would have to be willing to accept more deaths on our roads and more serious injuries, and it's probably not an appropriate decision right now. That's not to say that we're not against increasing speed limits in the future, but it has to be about building a safe system, and a safe system for all road users. So that's, you know, car drivers, it's nice if you've got a nice open road like Toby's probably had over the last couple of days, you know, to be able to drive between Sydney and Melbourne. But, you know, put a whole pile of trucks on that road and other vehicles such as motorcycles, 130 k's an hour. You know, I don't think many Victorians or Australians would want to see trucks travelling at 120, 130 k's on those roads.
What message would raising the limit send out to the more irresponsible drivers, not necessarily truck drivers, but normal car drivers?
Well, you know, cars, as Toby would know, a lot of cars have speedometers that say up to 260, 270 kilometres an hour, and it would possibly encourage people to go much, much faster than on these roads and on other roads that are just not suitable for travelling at 120, 130 k's an hour.
Toby Hagon, critics of your proposals have also said that there should be a greater focus, and I think John was touching on that, on driver education. Let's forget about speed limits, keep them where they are. We really need to educate drivers much more better in Australia, whether it being raising the threshold to get your licence in the first place or making drivers go through defensive driver courses or the like through the course of their driving careers.
Absolutely right. I mean, at the moment we teach people how far they can park from a bus stop, how to do a three-point turn, all these sorts of basic things that they can learn, and if they make a mistake doing it, it's not a major issue. But at the same time, we never actually teach them the very basics of crash avoidance, how to do an emergency stop, all these sorts of things that drivers at some point throughout their driving life will have to do, and it's unfortunate that we don't see that as a major consideration. You go to countries like Germany, where it's an extremely serious task getting your licence. It costs you thousands of dollars to get that licence, and they take you through a whole string of exercises, including driving at higher speeds, driving at night, driving in the rain. They take it extremely seriously, and unfortunately the best we can do in Australia is tell people to sit with their parents for a bit longer, often passing on those bad habits to younger generations.
Yeah, you raised the autobahns there, and they have been, that roadway, the very good roadway in Germany, has been raised by a lot of our viewers this morning as an argument as to why speed limits could be happily increased here. But we're talking chalk and cheese here. You mentioned the fact that drivers in Germany tend to be much better educated. The roads arguably are much better as well, so it's really unfair to use the autobahn example to justify the increase here.
It is a little bit, but it is an example of how higher speeds can be safe and can be travelled extremely safely. And as John would know, the crash rate on German autobahns is actually very impressive. But cancel Germany out of the equation and let's have a look at other countries such as Italy and France and the UK, where speed limits are higher than they are in Australia. They do have differential between trucks and other vehicles, caravans for example, where they have to stick to lower limits, say 100 kilometres an hour. The traffic gets along fine, and you can have trucks doing 100 kilometres an hour in the slow lane, cars doing 130. It happens extremely safely across most parts of Europe and in large chunks of America.
So, John, the challenge here really is, picking up on Toby's point, to throw down the gauntlet to state governments to really increase focus on basic driver training in Australia.
Look, there's a lot of work being done on improving the licensing system for young drivers. The graduated licensing system in Victoria has been improved significantly. We have the green and red Ps, the 4-year probationary period, 120 hours supervised practice for learners. These are all important steps. And there's also the amazing project that's going on at the moment here in Victoria and in New South Wales, where we're testing over 28,000 probationary drivers as part of the P Drivers project to test some of these theories around further training. So that work's being done, and we're going to see changes in those areas in the future. And
just finally, before we both go, at the other end of the speed spectrum, you're very much in favour of lowering the speed limit in CBD and on major shopping strips to 40 k's an hour. Why would that be a good thing?
Look, I think we need to consider the speed limits in areas where we've got high vulnerable road user congestion. So lots of pedestrians, such as the Melbourne CBD, where you've got about 800,000 people on foot every day. We need to develop speed limits that are suitable for the road users there. So we can encourage more cycling, for example, because it's cleaner and greener, and also put a system in place that's safe for pedestrians. We know that they can survive a 40k accident, but at 50 k's your chances are significantly increased of death.
Toby, and quickly to you, a good idea, the 40k limit in city areas?
Look, in areas where there are a lot of pedestrians, I don't have an issue with that. I think it makes some sense to at least look at those and revise them. But at the same time, we shouldn't just be caught in this whole sort of way of thinking of just saying we must lower speed limits the whole time. At the end of the day, cars are about getting somewhere quickly and efficiently and safely, and where possible, let's take advantage of that.
It's been a great chat. Toby Hagon, Fairfax editor for Fairfax, thank you.
Thanks.
And John Thompson from the Transport Accident Commission in Victoria, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Drive safely.
Have a great day and stay cool.